myself. Oh no, give me that cell. Oh, I gotta go like Cobain. 8 years to the grave, gone insane. My blood got propane. How you gon' go and throw my name with shame? Already cross-faded, making it to the disco. I hate it, and you know how this goes. You framed it, picture painted in my room. This that real life shit, none of Zoom, got the scene in it.
Make sure you're subscribed to JerCrispy.
What's up, y'all? It's your host, the most, does the most. JerCrispy, look back in the video. Pixar's want Toy Story to go on forever. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow our social media. It's gonna pop on the screen. I know this has been not. Oh, I'm about to say, I thought that mother about to play on the TV for a minute. Why this stuff it got played on the TV? Don't do that, YouTube. Stop. On the road to 500, let's get it.
When you think about it, it really does seem as if Toy Story's never going to end, no matter what happens, and I'm not really sure how to feel about that fact. At this point, it seemed to be Pixar's golden goose, and I can't say I really blame them for thinking this way. Just recently, Andrew Stanton, who's a longtime Pixar director and creative leader who's directed films such as Finding Nemo, WALL-E, Finding Dory, and now Toy Story 5, as well as being part of the creative team for heaps of other classic Pixar films, outwardly came out and said that Pixar kind of wants to turn Toy Story into an ongoing and generational saga. A sort of never-ending franchise that you can always come back to and that Pixar can keep making content for going forward. So this means Toy Story 5, but at the same time, it also means they have every intention of going forward with further installments. At minimum, I'd expect that this means a 6th film, but in reality, I also think they have every intention of never stopping. I mean, here's the full quote so I can't be accused of taking things out of context. Because toys are kind of perennial, the franchise is something you can grow with. People who watched it as kids become parents and now watch it with their kids. We've created a world and group of characters that could easily keep going forever. Later in the same quote, he goes on to say how excited he is to keep these stories coming. So at first, I guess you could brush it off and say it's just the idle speculation of a director. But this dude's pretty high up at Pixar.
And that's how they about to keep running this up to the Toy Story and all that other stuff, bro. They about to run that stuff all the way to his grave, bro. I ain't lying to you, saying, and we be in my late 20s and we get a Toy Story 25, bro. At this point, I'm not watching Disney no more. Because how we get Toy Story 25? What would be the plot of Toy Story 25?
He's been around since the beginning, was one of the key writers of the Toy Story franchise, and is openly saying how excited they are for these stories. Not a story. It's not like Toy Story 3 or Toy Story 4, which both felt like they were marketed to be the ending point of the franchise where they're not going to come back. Here though, it's clear from the manner of speech that there's an expectation of Toy Story films beyond just the 5th one, and I think it's very obvious as to why they're now doing this. Think about how different Pixar and the animation industry in general were during the release cycles of both Toy Story 3 and 4. Pixar was one of the top studios of the 2000s. The 90s was them finding their feet, and Toy Story was a big part of that. The first films did really well for what was at the time a fresh concept. Pixar was a new studio that nobody had heard of, coming out with a new film during the peak Disney Renaissance. The Lion King had come out the year before and smashed the box office, and the slow decline of Disney hadn't started yet. Thus, a film with a new studio and a completely different style was a risk, and a risk that really paid off, grossing $372 million off of $30 million. This was a high number for the time, a smash hit. It outgrossed Disney with Pocahontas and was the second highest grossing film overall for the year, only behind the third Die Hard. Not too shabby. The sequel came out 4 years later and it did very well. It proved that animated sequels have a place in the cinemas and grossed $511 million off of $90 million, once again defeating Disney at the box office with Tarzan.
I ain't lying to you, though. They ruined Tarzan too, though. I ain't gonna hold you. Yeah, I say that because the only reason why would we taking Tarzan 2 all the way back to his childhood? Then we got a dude named Ooh God. Like, to this day, me and my brother be making jokes about that. I think we watched the whole Tarzan 2 saying, and we be joking about that. Y'all go look at Tarzan and look at Ooh God. Then y'all know what I'm talking about.
Tarzan and blasting off to infinity and beyond. However, that felt like the end of the Toy Story franchise because ultimately, they didn't need it. They'd cemented.
Like I said, they needed to end it off with number 2. Number 3 was pointless. Number 4 was definitely pointless. And number 5, the number 5 somehow, some way be pointless. We don't need no more Toy Stories movie. Now, number 5 out of nowhere shocked me and talk about we might need another Toy Story movie. But y'all pushing it, we start getting double digits to this month. Just gonna keep it real.
Their position as one of the top dogs of the animated industry, and they were packing in the crowds and getting a lot of acclaim. Monsters, Inc. was the biggest animated film of 2001. Finding Nemo took that spot in 2003. Incredibles only lost out to Shrek 2 because Shrek had become an overnight sensation, but even then, The Incredibles was their second highest grossing...
Cause I ain't lying to you. Who couldn't say Shrek 2, bro? Shrek 2 is actually a banger. So if I'm rating, deadass rating movies for Shrek, bro, got Shrek 2 as number 1, Shrek 1. I got Shrek after, and that Shrek 3 gotta be last. I don't know what I'm saying. It just I don't know. I went to rewatch it, bro. It's the plot, bro. I don't know what I'm saying, bro. It was just crazy. Shrek didn't want to be king or something like that. He ain't had to do that. Mind you, he could have rearranged a lot of things and stuff like that. So that's why I felt like 3, it didn't make no sense to me. And like that, you know.
Film ever at that point. They kept going strong throughout the decade and developed a reputation as a bit of an artisan studio. However, DreamWorks and Blue Sky were starting to pull away with big grosses. Original films, Pixar was ruling the roost, but people would come back in big droves for sequels, and so clearly Pixar, by then owned by Disney, thought, screw it. They made Toy Story 3, grossed over $1 billion, becoming the first animated film to ever do so, and punched DreamWorks and Blue Sky in the face very, very hard indeed. They returned as the box office top dog for a time, eventually going on to share that spot with sister studio Walt Disney Animation, who they had in turn humbled across the previous 15 years since their debut. The 2010s was a huge time for the animation industry in general, hence why after Toy Story 3, they didn't really seem all that eager to follow up with a 4th film anytime soon. And why would they? They were making a lot of hits. Hell, pretty much everybody in the industry was at that point, right? Look at the charts. Toy Story opened the decade with $1 billion gross, and since then, 13 other films have made it past that milestone. Animated films, that is. And 10 of them? They were within the decade of the 2010s. Hell, just widen the scope a little bit more, and you get an even clearer picture of the situation at large. Of the top 50 highest grossing animated films of all time, 29 of them come from the decade of the 2010s. 11 of them come from the 2000s, 1 from the 90s, and then there are 9 from the 2020s.
And there's no worries for the rest of your day. Yeah, sing it, kid. It's our privacy. For a loss of proof, I come with a time. That's all it is. Mm-hmm.
That is such an overwhelming majority for the 2010s that you can really see why Toy Story 3 seemed like an ending. They were so successful across the board that they didn't need the franchise. They could afford to go with the flow and make whatever they wanted. Toy Story 4 had that same vibe. They were there to just pick up that big box office. They by no means had to make that movie. They had an idea, they knew it would do well, and then once again they framed it as an ending because I don't think they ever thought...
So what is the plot for Toy Story 5 is going to be, since what, he's going back to see his friends? Because I thought he left them to be with this chick, even though that's kind of pretty stupid because she could have went along with him and they could have went along with him too. But hey, you know, the circus like come on now.
They'd go back to it. They were having an untouchable run. The golden age of Pixar was going strong, until it wasn't. The 2020s have seen Pixar really fall off in terms of audience esteem. No longer are they considered the big man on campus. No longer are they impervious to criticism.
Now let's keep it a nice good buck. Let's go ahead and run that back. I know that just caught me out. Let's keep it a buck. You know, dang way ain't nobody scared of them brooms. Let's keep it a buck. And you know, there was a different color. Them niggas would have been running in the full flat, never look back. They would have been using them brooms. Them brooms would have been on the floor.
Esteem. No longer are they considered the big man on campus. No longer are they impervious to criticism. Even worse for them, though, is they've been starved for big hits. They had a few flops in a row, and they also had a bunch of straight to Disney Plus releases that somewhat damaged their...
Souls is actually a good ass movie. I'm not gonna hold you. Even though they said they're gonna believe you in the game.
prestige and market position. Since they came back to cinemas, they had Lightyear, which bombed, Elemental, which I think barely broke even, Inside Out 2, which did spectacular, and then Elio this year, which might be their worst performing film ever. Then, of course, Onward had its run cut short by COVID, while Soul, Luca, and Turning Red were streaming exclusives before they later on got a limited theatrical run. Not doing all that crash hot, all things considered. Besides Inside Out 2, their last big hit was Toy Story 4. Thus, from a financial point of view, I think it makes sense to not only bring back the franchise with a 5th installment, but to go so far as to openly suggest that 5 won't be the end. that in fact, there is no end in sight. After all, the studio's no longer in the midst of some 25-year golden run. They're very much in the midst of the worst financial period they've ever seen in terms of their box office returns, outside of the explosive success of Inside Out 2. So with all of that in mind, I do get why they're saying that this is a franchise they want to keep coming back to, and that it should become a kind of generational story where every 5 to 10 years there's a fresh one, with people growing up on these films. It allows them to continually grow the potential audience for each movie, and therefore earn more money and build up more momentum. However, that's all just financial justification, isn't it? It seems like a wise decision to make Toy Story a permanently ongoing franchise they can keep coming back to, because the reality is they're the most consistently performing films that Pixar has on the books. 2 films above $1 billion, with only The Incredibles 2...
Some telling me, and this is my theory, some telling me that they're gonna make another Toy Story 3, another Toy Story 6, and that's when Andy gonna come back. And Andy gonna come back in the picture as a grown-ass dude, right? Get done for college, he gonna have a little kid. You know what I'm saying? So that little girl got, she got done with them kids. Andy gonna come back, take them toys back from that girl, because she already grown up and all that stuff, and give it to his sons. And now they gonna finish off with his sons, and now if that happen, we're in the world of trouble. That's all I'm gonna say.
In Inside Out 2 sitting above them on Pixar's charts. If anything's going to be able to turn things around, then it's going to be a string of strong performances from Toy Story and other big hitter franchises. It can give them a bit of insurance that every couple of years, no matter what happens, they'll be able to turn things around and get a big box office to offset any potential failures. I know that online people often have a big old salty...
Man, he did it wrong. You're supposed to have that mug all the way right here to the, right here, the risk of... Then you ain't even put it down like that. Like, come on now.
A big box office to offset any...
That weak ass stuff, man. You're supposed to have that man at least right here. Have him all the way rest up. Shoot, you the one who messed it. Don't make the sad face. You the one messed it up. That's a volcano in the background.
Potential failures. I know that online people often have a big old salty cry about sequels and how studios are becoming creatively bankrupt, but at the same time, I can't help but think the proof is in the...
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it real. Inside Out is gonna have a number 3. They already confirmed Coco got a number 2 now. I don't even know what the plot gonna be that for. What else happened? Moana gonna have a number 3 because it's our baby sister. Shit, you know you gotta clear my voice sometimes too. Somehow, some way, I think the Lion King might actually have another movie coming down. Somehow, some way. What's another movie we gotta what's another movie that should have at least have they shouldn't have a part 2? I ain't lying to you though. I feel like if Princess and the Frog had another movie had 2, but it's like I feel like it's pointless to me to make a number 2 for Princess and the Frog. So I wouldn't say don't put that. I feel like at least the robot could at least had a number 2 movie. Who else could have had a number 2 movie? I'm thinking. Hold up, y'all. Hold up. It gonna hit my mind without off the camera.
Pudding. Despite the vocal online fans kicking off, it's clear that audiences respond well to them and are eager to go and see them. Hence why pretty much every other studio is pivoting towards bringing back their big name franchises in their back catalogue. DreamWorks is dusting off Shrek. Disney's bringing back Zootopia and Frozen. 20th Century's defrosting Ice Age. So it does...
we already knew. That's what I was talking about, Zootopia. Zootopia, they're going to have a number 3 for Zootopia. It's raps for that. What else is Shrek? We're going to have a number 7. Somehow, some way, Puss in Boots might have another movie too coming along. You thought The Last Wish was something? Nah, that nigga got another one. That nigga about to have sons in this mug. What? Why we ain't had Puss in Boots get no kids yet, man? Watch, they gonna put that down on the line. They gonna milk anything, just get some money out there, mug. Must be about the money.
Makes sense to bring back Toy Story as the OG franchise player. From that point of view, I do agree with the idea of milking this for all it's worth, but as a fan, I have my own concerns about things. From a creative point of view, I am a bit unsure about the idea of Toy Story 5 in general, and then a continuation of the franchise beyond that. Then again, I was like that for Toy Story 4 too. I wasn't sure how the hell you pick up from the ending of Toy Story 3, and I thought it would be better to ride off into the sunset, so to speak. They had a great ending there with Andy's goodbye to childhood, and so I was apprehensive. When I went to see the movie, I will admit, I didn't really like it all that much. Felt like a story destroyer, that it wrecked the perfect ending of Toy Story 3, that it wrecked Woody's character because he'd never abandoned a child he'd been entrusted to, etc., all that sort of thing. At the same time, though, I did note that the overwhelming opinion surrounding the film did seem to be positive. I reckon that Pixar was still the golden boy back then, and so people gave them a whole lot more grace. COVID, of course, turned everything on its head, and in the aftermath, it seemed as if opinions had completely shifted. Out of the woodwork came the haters, and suddenly, nobody ever liked Toy Story 4 at all, did they?
Y'all think we might have another COVID coming around this month? I ain't lying to you. If we have another COVID, son, let me at least rack up some money, at least, because if we have another COVID, I ain't lying to you. Niggas might actually go crazy. I ain't gonna hold you. A lot of people gonna lose jobs. People just gonna start going crazy and stuff. It's gonna be the same stuff, but like 10 times worse. I would say 10 times worse is like just double the worst. So I don't know, bro.
It was like the whole perception of the studio changed on a dime, and nothing has been the same since.
But I feel like, in my opinion, out of COVID situation, I think I'd be straight, low key. But I don't know about everybody else, but I'd probably be straight. That's probably when content would actually be more pushed out more than as it is. It's pushed out there, but it would be probably like more like a extendo, like, on some crazy. Yeah.
They retroactively were willing to go back and find flaws with past films, and Toy Story 4 probably copped it harder than most in that regard. However, in the last year or so, I took another look at Toy Story 4, and I've come to the realization that I rather like the film overall. And that's the thing though. I like the film now. It has an ending. You have a new ending right there that feels natural. The toys got their big final farewell to Andy in the ending of Toy Story 3. Then Woody has his own realization that for him, there's no going back. Andy was his kid, and now it's time for him to wander the trail and help other toys find their happily ever after. So why continue? Now, before we go any further, I will say that I'm not hugely scared of the story being actually bad. Ultimately, I think they have a pretty solid premise overall. The idea of Bonnie getting a tablet and getting addicted and not playing with her toys anymore is a very interesting concept, and I think it can end up being very funny and very moving. That's not really what my issue is. It's the fact that once again we're going to be bringing the main crew back together for yet another film, and it's still not their final adventure. Thus, if they're trying to turn this into a long-term franchise that they can keep going back to again and again, I don't think it's going to work. I mean, what is the big critique on Toy Story 4? It's that it walks back the ending of the third movie, and now this one is promising to walk back the big emotional separation of Woody and the rest of the toys from Bonnie's room by having Woody make his return to be involved with the battle against technology and Lilypad. Or at least, that's what the release concept art would suggest is going to happen. I personally think that this suggests that they're all too stuck in the confines of a status quo. They want multiple generations to come out and see these movies, and I expect they think that the more generations they reach, the more likely they can push higher and higher into the box office charts. Now that a Chinese animated film has cracked that $2 billion mark, I have no doubt that all the Western studios are looking to try to top that number now that they know it's possible. They're still a ways off from that goal, with the nearest film being Inside Out 2, which grossed $1.69 billion at the box office in 2024. But I guess the idea is to try to get that huge net. All the people who watched the first two films growing up, then all those people that were kids for the third film, and then those for the fourth, and then maybe the fifth too. All building over time to create a huge potential audience that could have a proper nostalgic connection to the franchise for a big record-breaking gross. It didn't quite work out that way for Toy Story 4, which really didn't pull as high numbers as I would have expected, to be honest, but it certainly worked out that way for the third movie to be the first ever animated film to gross $1 billion. This is why I think they want that status quo to endure. They want to be able to say, look, it's Woody, Buzz and the gang, they're all still here and it's the same as it was when you were a kid. Come watch our movie. I can understand why you might choose to do things this way. They want that money and they don't want people raging and boycotting.
Bro, like I say, it's gonna be like different. It's gonna be so different, bro. It's gonna be like, yeah, we had them like, little kids. Now we're gonna upgrade them to, boom, 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 and stuff like that. Shit, I feel like Andy gonna come back. For some reason, I feel like Andy might come back and get Woody in them. And get them to his kids. That's how I feel it. Low key.
Because it's not the same. That being said, I do think that by playing it safe and going for the somewhat cowardly option, you end up sacrificing a lot of narrative potential along the way. I think this of course could be the stable option in the short term, especially when your studio's had more misses than hits lately, but at the same time, I don't think it's setting up the franchise for the long-term success they want. To do that, I think they need to take risks and do things a bit differently, explore new scenarios and introduce new characters, not just go back to the same old when they get frightened. For instance, Toy Story 5. I don't see why they've ended up going in this direction. Toys versus technology is a good premise, like I said. I actually do think it's a pretty interesting concept to explore, and there are lots of directions to take. However, at the end of the 4th film, Woody and Buzz separate. Woody leaves the toys because he realizes his time as being a toy for a sold child came to an end when Andy grew up and left him with Bonnie. That was his farewell to that old part of his life too. Instead, he chose to remain with Bo Peep and become a wandering toy who guides children and toys alike to find their chosen toy and chosen family. It's a poignant and somewhat bittersweet ending to his character, and I do think it makes the ending feel a lot special by sending him back into the thick of things just like that. I think the really brave direction they could have taken would have not been including Woody in the film at all. I know, that sounds like a bit of a crazy person take on things, and like I'm just asking for the movie to flop and lose money, but hear me out. Let's just say that we follow the toys in Bonnie's room. Now you have space for new character dynamics and stories to be told that don't revolve around Sheriff Woody, because let's be real, he's been the main character, the sole main character, for quite a while. I don't think Buzz has felt like an equal part of the story since Toy Story 2, way back in 1999. In Toy Story 3 and 4, yes, he's still important, but he's not on the same level as Woody anymore. And it's Woody who gets the big character arcs and story beats.
I feel like I would never put Woody out the situation and put Buzz the whole main cast. Mind you, I ain't saying Buzz ain't the type of person that, he ain't got it like that. I mean, he got it like that, but you might need to go ahead and take that back, because to you, Toy Story is really mainly for Woody. Then Buzz came at 2. Then number 3, they was together. Number 4, he left. Number 5, I feel like they gonna reunite it. That's just me. So, that's how I feel.
Thus, by removing him outright from the story at large, it allows other characters to slip in and fill that gap that's left in his wake. Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer perhaps to not have the voice of Tom Hanks in your movie, but I think it frees up a lot of space in your script to flesh out other characters and give them more characterization and a proper arc. Characters like Buzz can come back to the forefront, and then there's Jessie. At the end of the 4th film, Woody proclaims that she's the new sheriff, and he's trusting her to look after the toys from now on without him. Trusting her to fill his role. And it's hard to fill this role if he comes right back, isn't it? I think it might be a bit of a hard sell to move away from him as your lead for the movie, but at the same time, I think if you market the film right and emphasize Buzz and Jessie, it would still likely be massively successful. The Toy Story branding alone does mean something, after all. All of that being said, in terms of real-life toy sales, they might not want to take that risk. I reckon they make bank on Woody toys, especially during the peak of each film, and even nowadays, you see lots of Woody toys in stores. However, I do think that absence makes the heart grow fonder, and so you could have this big moment in a subsequent film where he makes his return, and of course you could advertise that heavily ahead of time, and it would just do very well. Then there's the other direction they could have taken with Toy Story 5. Scrap returning to Bonnie's room and keep Woody as the lead in a cross-country adventure with Bo and some of the other nomads. It keeps the status quo somewhat stable with Woody, who's probably one of the most popular characters in the franchise, as your lead, and I think it opens up the story to a whole host of different opportunities. Plus, I think it would give them even more of a chance to explore fresh characters to make up Woody's supporting cast, with the intention of potentially turning them into lead characters at some point. Because that's really what they need to do if they want to be able to turn Toy Story into a long-running franchise beyond just Toy Story 5. If they want to keep them going indefinitely, because let's be real, the voice actors are aging, and eventually you're going to come to a point where it's going to be their final film in the role, especially if you take these extended gaps between movies. 1 to 2 was 4 years, which is the shortest gap the franchise has ever had. 2 to 3 had a very long gap of 11 years. 3 to 4 was 9 years, and this will have been 7 years. They tend to want to take time off between each movie, meanwhile our leads get ever older. So what does this mean? It means you need to establish new characters the audience can connect with, who could slowly take these lead slots and get more and more story exposure.
I feel like that's not gonna work, because you can't take no original character, because you're still gonna have them type of fans talk about, oh my god, you trying to put this person and take over Woody. That can't work. Boom, 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 and all that other stuff, I feel like they need to go ahead and end it off with 5. Like how we on the road to 500. Y'all they need to end it off with 5 right here. This has got to be the last one right here. Of not end it off with 6.
Problem, of course, being that people are coming to see this for their nostalgia. And what is Toy Story without Woody? I don't think it's anything. Ultimately, it is his story more than anybody else's. So when I think of Toy Story becoming some generational saga, it gets me worried. Worried that eventually the bottom's going to fall out of this thing, and the franchise will be tarnished or never feel the same as it did. Either that, or they'll need to eventually recast the original voices, which could potentially be a bit strange. I guess you could get some impressionists or something like that with the classic Disney characters, or with the Muppets or Sesame Street. I feel like it's certainly something that could be possible, and I suppose I wouldn't be against it so long as the original actors agree, and they also don't use AI or something horrific like that. So in my mind, you could either recast and keep the characters going on forever, or you can end at least the Woody and the Gang story, which I think a lot of fans would like to see. So with their story over, you could either just end the whole franchise, or if you wanted to, you could try to follow on with a new set of toys with a new kid. Also, if they do end up deciding to finish Woody and the Gang story, surely they gotta head back to Andy, right? Surely. If they don't, I think it'll be a big mistake. I realize that some people would then say, oh, they're walking back the ending of 3, but let's be honest, that idea went out the window when Toy Story 4 was announced. It's clear that Andy still plays such an important role in each Toy Story film, even ones he's not present in. He's clearly linked with the franchise, and as much as you could try to continue the franchise with a new set of toys and a new kid, it would feel like a cheap imitation, wouldn't it? The reason franchises work is because you connect with a specific set of characters and you want to follow them. Sometimes that can work indefinitely, and sometimes it can't. Sesame Street's a big ongoing one, but that's because the monsters don't age, and the kids they're connected to are the ones that are watching them on TV.
Oh, damn, I wonder why Emma never grew up and stuff like that. Because I ain't lying to you. That nigga Emma at least supposed to be like 20 years old. I don't mind. They supposed to be 20 years old. Real talk.
That's why The Simpsons also works, even though it's gotten stale over time. It's why Despicable Me continues to work. The kids don't really age, they don't change. Inside Out continues to work because you know that despite Riley getting older, the emotions aren't going to just up and leave. The characters are going to remain constant. But when the characters you're writing age like Andy and Bonnie, and when their story revolves around childhood, there does need to be some sort of conclusive ending. Sure, you could theoretically follow generations down the line, but it only works if there's still a connection. If you just throw some random kid in there with new toys, it is not the same. And if you keep changing the child and passing down the Woody and Gang toys to a different...
That's just creepy right there. I ain't lying to you. As soon as I just pick up a doll like this. Like, ain't no way. So I would have said, you know what? Peace. Like, real talk.
Kid, and that kid doesn't seem to care about the main character, then you also lose the connection to the child, and it just becomes a toy show. There's no reason behind it anymore. And that's why people love Andy and not Bonnie, because you don't really follow the toy characters she's actually bonded with and how their bond with the child impacts their lives. Maybe 5 can change that, with Jessie and Buzz getting bigger roles, but I really do think there needs to be some sort of homecoming for the toys at this rate, and for the franchise to just be done. Any way you look at it, the continuation just seems to be...
Yeah, and in general, this Disney need to go ahead and wrap it up with Woody and them. Cause this is ridiculous. Ain't no way y'all should just be we should be still going on and on with these Toy Story with Woody and them. Woody and them should be ended off by 5 or 6. Don't push it to 7 or 8. But hey, hope y'all enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow our social media, post on the screen. What was on the screen? We're on the road to 500.